before I begin, I thought I'll do something a little unorthodox and share a little bit about who I am not. And who I am not is an expert around gift culture or gift economy or alternative economies for that matter. I'm not an economist. I'm not a professional expert who is consulting for any major organization or governments. I am just somebody who has been exploring and experimenting with this idea ever since I've come across it. And all I'm trying to do today is to share some of that experiences, ideas, and just to see if this can move forward in some way and can reflect and bounce off of your experiences as well. I grew up with pretty much the way I was told is the best way to grow up. Go to school, be a good student, earn a good name, and get good marks, and aim higher, aim for a good job, good university, good grades. This went on and on and on. And this kept going with a little bit of unrest inside of me, which where things didn't seem to fall into place because there are some things that I'm hearing about how life should be or what is good and what is bad. But somehow, when I pay attention to life, somehow these things don't seem to be fitting into my reality or my experience of reality. So eventually, it came to a point where I realized I really need to slow down and watch what's happening in my life. What am I really doing with my life? So it is that point I think a lot of things started changing for me, and then began a process of consciously inquiring what is it that I want to really unlearn. And over the past few years, different kinds and ways of unlearning has happened, by itself most of the time. But what I have made sure is that I set an intention consciously to really slow down and examine every aspect of my life. How am I with people? What kind of relationships I'm holding? What kind of food am I eating? What kind of work am I doing? What gives me joy? What gives me fulfillment? What gives meaning to my life? And in this way, one of the things that I've also been fortunate enough to examine and explore in this journey has been around my understanding of money. The economy part of it came later, but this has been a very valuable part of my journey in many ways. So, a little bit, I think if I look back, maybe early 2012, 13, 14, around this time, I was working in a corporate, office, and I was earning decently well. But when I really looked at my life up until that point, I was in my early 20s, and what I was really looking at that time was that in the last 25 years of whatever I had been, exploring, I realized that a lot of my decisions has in some way, been around money as one major factor. Money was playing a very crucial role in how I was making choices, in every day in life, whether I was taking an auto or an office bus or the kind of person that I was even thinking about romantically involving with. I was constantly keeping this as a factor at the back of my head. And not to mention, my family had their own financial debts that also put pressure on me to not go and pursue the dreams that I really wanted to do. Not that my parents put pressure, but the situation was such that I had to really look at that debt, education loan and housing loan and other things that was there. And I was surrounded by these things that somehow made me feel like I didn't have many choices in life, and I felt sort of stuck. And when I really looked at my life, I realized one thing I was really suffering, about money was not that money was evil or anything, but because around money, something changed about how I experience life. Essentially, what happened is where I was working, there were times when I felt like something I worked really hard on, like really worked hard to create maybe some coding that I was doing. Never went and became part of a website. And it stayed for 3 years, 4 years just in the dumps. And when I felt bad and said, you know what, I put my creativity into it, I put my heart into it, and I wanted to see this online, and why is this not happening? I remember one of my, senior colleagues telling me, Kaushik, you're not here to get satisfaction and all. You did the coding and they paid you for it, no? And that's it. That's your job. You get paid and you do whatever the hell it is that they're asking you to do. If they're overworking you, you ask for extra pay. Or you find another company that pays you better. And this was how, cut and dried things were. So dry in terms of not recognizing some of the things that were very valuable and important for me. And I noticed this was playing out in many things, whether I was going to a, street vendor, or whether I was going to a mall, or whether I was trying to, find new acquaintances in work. Every moment I was constantly thinking, and I saw people constantly thinking, oh, if I become friends with this person is connected to that person and they can help me in some way, someday in the future, you know? And it became a very calculative game of chess, like, situation where everything was about, in a sense, a transaction. And why I'm sharing this is because one of the important things that broke for me when I tried to like get out of that space, when walk out of that space, was that I was sick of this transactional nature of how I was surrounded, the things that were surrounding me at that time, and the transactional nature that it had. And this is not just with my life. If I took a look at, the larger game that was playing out, I saw that politicians only cared about the vote banks, and a lot of their decisions were all around these things. And I don't even need to get started about how, as a species, we've been exploiting our natural resources. I, for one, did an engineering which was around renewable energy and sustainability, and most of our work were about green buildings and green technology and green, all kinds of green stuff. But if we really look at it, what I learned to see was that there was an innate tendency in the way we were problem solving that did not take into account a certain simple reverence for the fact that my life is connected to the natural resources that I'm drawing from. And the way we were plundering the ideas, the so-called glorified innovations that I was part of, the projects that I was doing, it felt very heartless to me, because a lot of the times the way in which nature was looked at was just that this is some resource that I have to make use of. Just the way people are making use of each other, and I was taught to make use of, my work and my education. Everything became utility based and completely devoid of anything beyond that. So I feel, as I'm sitting here, even having this conversation on, a Zoom instead of, having a in-person, interactive conversation that I would like to do, is also, I think, somewhere a consequence of, mindlessly plundering natural resources that have created a cascade of different issues, including global warming or whatever it is that you're looking at, including the COVID crisis, And I feel like right now, as I'm sitting here, this transactional attitude about life is still contributing to how this is not finding, enough fulfillment for me. And well, when I stepped out, and then, okay, this is a story I'll come back to later, but eventually I felt like I wanted to redesign my life the way I wanted to. So I broke free of everything, didn't worry about consequences, took a huge leap of faith, and took a risk, and just walked out of this lifestyle completely. But more on that story later. The reason why I was sharing about this whole, strife that I was having with the transactional nature of things is because, for me, a lot about gift culture is around this fundamental shift that um, gift culture for me was one way in which I could move beyond experiencing just life as just a transaction and give more emphasis on relationships. Now, this might sound like an idea, in some way. It might look like some kind of a, philosophy or theory. But if you really look at this, let's just think about some of the things that may have happened, probably happened in your life. How many of you have probably had cousins or siblings or someone in the family who were elder to you? They were using some cloth or toys or books And then when they were, got old enough, and those things were passed down to you or somebody else in your family. Has that happened? You can just type a yes or put a thumbs up in the chat section if that is true for you. Yeah. And these things also, if you have gone to the market, if you, I mean, I don't know the kind of markets that I used to go to, where these long streets full of markets and small, small vendors selling vegetables. When I go, I try to go to some of the same vendors over and over again. And there is a conversation beyond just like how much is this much and how is this and how is the price of that, what is the price of that. We have a conversation about the weather or about whether their kid has gone to school or what's happening with them. And then there is a certain, understanding about, they may probably talk about how the rains have failed and how things are not going well. Or in the, there's a certain human conversation that develops. And in the end, they casually say, you ask for 1 kilo, it's okay, chalo, take 50 grams extra, 100 grams extra. And this is not charity that they're doing. It is in a certain way, a way of saying, you know what, you're my clan, and I'm not going to, be very confused, or I'm not going to be very calculative about how this transaction is happening. There is still a transaction happening, right? He's not giving everything to me for free, or I'm not getting anything from her, I'm just giving money and walking away. There is a transaction, but the transaction is not merely a transaction. There is a larger element to it. There is a relationship that plays out. So what I'm trying to say is, for me, gift culture, at the heart of gift culture, what exists is this intention, is the spirit of prioritizing people over materials, prioritizing relationships over transactions, right? And in some ways, prioritizing a certain trust, more than a very calculated sense of suspicion. Oh, will this person come back again? Will they cheat me? Or this is going to happen to me? Or if I vote for this person, will this person do this for me? Whatever level it is happening in, in some sense, I know even long-term relationships have become like this, that okay, I'll get married to you as long as you can, take care of the financial needs of my family, but I will let you work if this happens here. This kind of, transactional things even exist with the so-called the most, romantic of relationships, and the long, lifelong relationships that we sometimes come across. At least I have come across this. So, at the heart of gift culture is this fundamental ability to be in touch with what is uh, in my heart more valuable. That is, for me at least, it's human relationships and the human element of touch. In some sense, another outcome of this that I experience is that there is a certain sense of abundance in me. How do I put this? There's this simple story of a cloth that I read as a child in a storybook. The story follows a cloth that was once weaved for a king, right? To be wrapped around. It's a powerful cloth, and then the cloth is used for some time, and then the king sees a very rich emissary from another uh, country who visits and pleases him, and he feels very happy, and he says, you know what, you have this is my gift to you. And then the emissary uses it for some time and then passes it down to his brother, and the brother passes it down to his son, and then it goes to a worker, and then the worker wears it, and then they gives it to somebody else. This is a very, fictional story about how a cloth experiences ownership with different human beings. Okay. But I realized today, actually, I was just talking to my partner. She narrated a story that reminded me of that story because she was sharing her reality, and she was talking about how in her family there is first, a certain sister who might buy the cloth, and then it goes from her to her, sister, then to her cousin who happens to be her elder sister, and then it passes down to her. Then by the time it's handed down by, four people have used it, it must be probably 4 to 8 years. And as children grow older, larger, and it stops fitting. And then the cloth is passed onwards to maybe the servant person, and the person passes it down to their children, and then finally, even after the utility is breaking down, and I'm not saying this is how it should be, okay, but I'm saying this is how it can go. As it breaks down, then they try and use it for maybe a mopping cloth, a wiping cloth, and after that also it disintegrates further. Then they find different ways of using that. My partner today was telling me one of the last stages of using the cloth is to make little wicks to light lamps like this, to use them until the stage that they can get burnt into the ashes. And I know even from those ashes sometimes they make kajal and again apply. So if you look at the way this culture that we at least have in India is sometimes been about, has taken into account that the entire life cycle of something that we are looking at is utilized at every stage, right? And this is not because people were in poverty, people were all trying to make the most of everything. This did not come from wanting to use it to shreds. This came simply because of understanding that there is still some value left in it, and how do I make more, how do I engage with it more, how do I engage with it more, how do I engage with it more. And this not only brings creativity but also a certain respect for the cloth, that imagine that one cloth's life cycle extended over a 20-30 year period compared to the cloth that I sometimes wear, and I see that my friends are buying from the shops today. At least I've chosen to go move towards organics and cotton, but a lot of my family members also still wear cloth that are a lot of plastic in them. And if you look at it, it's the entire, this is just one aspect I'm talking about, clothing. But if you look at the larger aspect of it, it has become a use and throw culture, right? Now we are trying to make a little bit of changes here and there because, single-use plastics, we've seen the harm that it can cause. And at a different level, we are seeing the problems that this use and throw, economy has built in and effects it has had. I don't know if you know this, but there are countries like the US and in some European countries who literally fill up ships, huge cargo ships, full of their trash like waste water bottles and other things that they are unable to dispose of. And there are countries here, like even India was part of it. I don't know what they're doing now, but they pay money. They receive money to have this dumped in their land. And this is the kind of policies that are being made by people we are electing. And I don't know how many of us are even aware of this, because the mindset of one side seems to be, and I'm not just making this between West and East or anything like that, but I'm saying there is a certain mindset to use, throw, use, throw, use, throw. In some sense, some people technically call this a linear economy, where everything just is used and then it disappears, right? But there is also a circular economy where I'm recycling, I'm reusing, and I'm constantly seeing how to make use of things in different creative ways until it can finally go back to the earth most of the time, but if not, at least back to the elements in some way, right? So this is something that was not taught, or nobody studied it as a science, but it was just part of how it was part of the culture, at least to some extent. And I personally don't want to make this a theory, because for me, my shift happened when I moved from my city bred life, where I grew up with the same things. My idea of food is, go to a supermarket, pick up a Maggie packet, come home, 2 minutes Maggie, cut, empty the packet, throw it in the trash. That's all my window was, right? That's a linear way of looking at things. I don't care where it came from, and I don't care where it's going. In fact, the office that I worked in, just before I quit my work and everything, was next to a huge dump yard in Chennai, which is the Pallikarnai marsh area, which was originally a marshland, which is still, I think some part of it is still surviving, thankfully. But marshlands, if you look at, is supposed to hold water like a sponge. They're very important parts of the ecosystem. But when I used to travel to office every day, I used to see kilometers and kilometers of just trash dumped everywhere. And it took me years of, education and everything didn't let me see that the Maggie packet that I threw in 2 minutes Maggie packet, that survives for at least 20 to 200 years, depending on how it's processed or not. So to even bring awareness about the kind of impact that I'm having, even in terms of that, gift culture is a very refreshing way for me to look at how do I keep things moving along, bringing back that circular economy more consciously into my everyday life. So I'll take a pause here because I also feel like, we've been talking a lot about concepts and theories, but I just wanted to slow down and go back to a story mode, because I was telling about me quitting my job and walking out. Um, just give me 1 second. I want to check what the time is. All right, it's 6:33. So when I quit my job, I had absolutely no plan. In fact, nobody in my office believed that I stepped out without a plan. And I had no other alternative job. I had no other, abroad degrees waiting for me or anything like that. And just decided this is not what I want in life. And this has always helped me. Even though I don't know what I really want or where I want to head, at least I want to be clear about what is it that I don't want and what is it that's not working for me. And this is how I worked through my life. So when I walked out, life was very interesting because it took me from a city bred, a cosmopolitan cities where I grew up in, and most of my schooling and college was all, with a very diverse group of people in a very urban setting, with all the comforts and luxuries that I had known of. From there, I moved with my partner close to the Adivasi communities in southern India, especially Andhra Pradesh. And this was a huge shift for me because Adivasis are just people I've like probably come across a couple of times in the movies, a very stereotyped version of them in the movies, maybe heard about them as in part of jokes. That's all my exposure was. But then my partner was at that time was had already been working, for many years with many communities on the ground, and the stories that she used to tell me were just like, what the hell is all of this? And I don't even understand half things that she's talking to me about, and it looks too fantastical to be true, and it doesn't feel like something that's rooted in reality. So when I went there, one of the most amazing things that happened is that all we knew, or all I wanted to do at least, traveling with her, is that I knew that somewhere something is not right about my life, and I wanted to learn life from scratch. Like I said, the unlearning process was about examining every aspect of my life with a certain clarity. So I thought, who better to learn from than the Adivasis who are, living life at its most grassroots level. They're really connected to the earth. So when I went there, we had no plan in mind. We had no solution, no problem to fix, nothing, no product to offer, nothing. We just went there and said, hey, we would like to spend time with you and we want to learn from you because we value the kind of life that you're learning. And still, this is not part of my experience. This was just part of my partner's experience, and I was just, I trusted her and I was just with them. And what was surprising for me, which I had already known and experienced a little bit, but I was facing it head on here, is that a village which had never heard of us before, never even seen us before, just heard us talk and offered to embrace us as part of their community. And we became part of their festivals. There was a lovely elderly woman who gave us space in her hut to stay. We used to go there. We used to mingle with the kids, and slowly they started talking to us about what we can offer. We started, we started small ways in which we started playing games with kids. And no matter what I was doing with them, I realized there was so much for me to learn because never once did I see a single shop in that village. There was never even a small shop to go and say, give me a packet of chips or a biscuit. But they were completely self-sufficient. And never once did they worry about, oh, I have to pay, I have to make lunch for 4 more people, 3 more people for these many days. How am I going to manage that? How am I going to figure this out? How am I going to figure that out? They are spending time in my house. Should I charge them? Never once did I even remotely feel that this was part of their thought process. And this was very different for me in many ways. One, because this is a theory and I've like experienced it in small ways. Even if I've experienced it somewhere, when I travel to villages and towns, it was because somebody knew somebody in my family, or they somehow recognized me as somewhere the part of their clan. That's why they were giving me certain, privileges. But this was completely out of the blue. Somebody is just trusting me and offering things that I never experienced. One thing I realized, one of my first unlearnings around gift culture was that I didn't know how to receive anything in life. Because all my life I thought I will give this for people, I will take care of people, I will offer this program for people, I will share this knowledge with people. I was in this mode of giving, and it made me feel really good. I thought, oh, I was like this person with a lot of gifts to offer, and I've been giving things away. But then for the first time, I realized I had never learned to receive. And this is not just, complicated things, even simple things. If somebody looks at me and says, hey, Kaushik, this dress is really good on you. And I go all shy because I don't know how to take a compliment. Simple things like compliments. And how will I receive the more important aspects of life? If somebody is showing me love, if somebody is saying, you know what, you relax, I'll take care of this, I'll go the extra stretch for you. For me, I had strong moral judgments because if at all somebody is doing something for me, that means I've failed. And these are many stories that I told myself that it's wrong to take, it is wrong to receive. If I'm receiving, I'm burdening others. In many ways, I was telling myself stories that I had carried from other people that was stopping me from even receiving what was being offered to me. And an interesting insight about giving and receiving that I have understood since then is that I have come to see this whole nonsense about giving and receiving as two separate things itself is a story that I tell myself. You know, as I'm sitting here and talking to you, I can look outside the window and see that there are trees that are surrounding me. If they are not doing their job of breathing and photosynthesis, if they are not giving out the oxygen that I have to inhale, I won't be able to sit here alive, right? There is a transaction and a relationship that is there. If I want, I can look at it as a mere transaction, right? This giving and receiving is constantly happening because somebody is able to build, houses around my neighborhood. I receive the sense of security in this house, right? So whether and some many things like this, if somebody is just because somebody is willing to toil in the field and grow those plants, that's why I'm able to sit here and receive the food that I'm getting. Somebody is fighting somewhere, war for me somewhere. So whether I'm aware of it or not, I am always in a state of receiving. And am I not giving anything back? Of course, the breath I'm giving out, carbon dioxide, is food for the trees, right? In some sense. And I'm also contributing to the security of this neighborhood. So this giving and receiving is happening simultaneously. There is no such thing for me as giving is separate and receiving is separate, because in every time I'm giving somebody, I'm receiving joy, fulfillment, gratification, connection, so many things in the process itself. No? And as I'm receiving, I'm offering other people a possibility to experience all of that. Maybe even get rid of some of their things or spread their skill, or boost their confidence. There are many things that are happening that I'm simply unaware of. So one of the first things that broke for me is that this giving, receiving as two different entities just broke. Whether I am aware of it or not, it's just happening. And all I needed to do was just pay attention to how naturally things are happening in life. And with nature, it's very evident. If I watch, it's the connections are all there. But with my life, with all the nonsense and stupidity I've told myself, I have blocked myself from being in touch with this possibility. So there was one major unlearning that happened for me. So just wanted to share a couple of funny instances that happened when we were running a learning center. We were running an NGO at that time because as we were working with Adivasi communities, they started understanding that we cannot be them because I am coming at least from a very different, body build and way of life. I cannot do the things that they do the way they do. So we were trying to see how can we support each other mutually. So one of the things they requested us to, support with their kids' education, and we try to see how we can journey together instead of teaching them. How can we explore things together? So we ran a learning center, and eventually we started running an NGO. Just to see, how we can keep meaningfully engaging and learning with communities. So when I say NGO, some of you might know that NGOs means it needs funds and there are funders. So we had a very sensible, very close to us. At that time they were a group that was funding us. But what happened eventually was slowly the idea of funding became this, that I am offering you money, so you do what I say. And I realized that they were not living in the space that I was, and the kind of work that we were engaged with. They didn't even get a sense of the community that we were in and the realities that we were facing. But this power play began where I pay money, you do what I say. And I realized it's the same thing that I was going through, in the corporate sector and other things that I had tried to walk out of. So we took a leap of faith again and said, you know what? You keep the money back. And we were a young organization at the time, and we returned back over 3 lakh rupees, just like that, and said, you know what? We were one of the only organizations I knew at the time who returned back funds saying, you keep the money. Because I don't want to work as on a transaction basis and put checklists. I will see how to offer the best of me. I want to be accountable, but that doesn't mean that I want to make this into a transactional relationship. Transaction than a relationship. So what we did was we went around crowdfunding, telling people that this is what I want to do. This is my intention. You support. If you're able to give us 1 lakh in the end, I will create projects for 1 lakh. If you are able to give us 1 crore, I will not take it because my capacity is not that much. But up till a certain point, depending on the money that you are giving us, we will do the best that we can do, and we will stay accountable in all these ways, step 1, step 2, step 3. And you won't believe we ended up fundraising over like almost 5 lakhs. That was way more than the funding that we were receiving. And not because somebody threw lakhs of rupees at us. They were all individual people who contributed small amounts from their hard-earned money because they built trust with us. And it's not that they are getting anything in return, but in the process, we built a rich relationship with the kind of people who are supporting us. And that was a very important way in which gift culture played out for me. I see that as part of gift culture because it was important that neither them nor us were feeling contractual or obligated to do anything specifically because of this transaction that was happening. Even though it was about money, it still felt very gift cultured in my experience. And this has also happened when people had sponsored me for learning certain very crucial skills like permaculture and doing yoga and stuff, where the fee of the program was high, and I had to really go around and say, hey, this is close to my heart and I need support. And again, I had learned how to ask at that time. So I knew how to receive. And I bore down and received. None of those people have ever come back to me and asked, what have you done with it? How did you go? How are you after all these years? Are you still doing your practice? Are you still making money out of it? If you're making money, give me back. Nobody has ever asked this because it happened in a certain way that felt very enriching to my life. Today, in many ways, I am seeing how I can support other people in their journey of, in ways in which I can gift and do something within my capacity, even if that's like a few minutes of my time or a few things that I have that I'm not using, or I feel somebody else needs more, or just in terms of money as well. That is also important, right? So once most of our stuff that we had collected with this little bit of money all got stolen away. One day we enter our house and everything is stolen, and we have no money left. Whatever little savings and other things I had put into the organization. Everything went overnight. Okay. And we were heartbroken, dejected, didn't know what to do. The only thing we had at that time was the trust of the people that had followed our work and knew the kind of work that we were engaged in. You won't believe it. Within 8 months, we started everything back from scratch. And it happened purely out of the generosity of people. And nobody gave a donation. People gave it. I mean, technically it was a donation, but I'm saying people gave it out of the goodness of their hearts, and these are not big sums, right? These are not just even money. In fact, when we were asking for support, there was a group in Delhi that went around collecting a lot of curtains, shawls, pillow covers, bed sheets, and sent us a huge packet of stuff that helped us rebuild our office, our homes. And even today, after many years, I still have some of them in my house. And I never went back to them. I never had a conversation with them afterwards. It was just that one exchange. But it was so fulfilling because it happened a certain way. It happened from a certain space. And that is, for me, the core and the essence of what gift culture is all about. And as part of this, I have been, exploring many formats of this. There are various projects and people experimenting with this across the country. And as I started trusting, people and saying, okay, let's just put things out there and see how it feels. You won't believe the kind of exchanges that I've had, in my life, which because I couldn't believe it. I have had laptops gifted to me for the organization. We've had cameras come our way, DSLR cameras, and we've given away laptops. And I've given away a DSLR camera, which and there have been times when I've even wanted it and it never came back. I don't even know where it is right now. And it never, a laptop or a DSLR camera didn't feel much bigger than giving away, a handmade toy that I made. Because right now it was only about in what space I'm giving things, from what space I'm giving things in, and not about the worth of that stuff. It was more about the value of the good that I was exchanging with somebody, right? And the value of the gesture of giving that I was doing at that time. That felt so fulfilling, whether it was, a laptop or a camera, or whether it was a small pencil that I was giving somebody. So like this, we tried different experiments over the next few years, because I consciously wanted to see how much can I push it, what all can I do. I've had gift circles where people come together and we all bring one little thing that we feel like gifting somebody, whether we need it or not, it doesn't matter. But I feel like genuinely gifting it to somebody, and we exchange it with each other and see how that feels. And these are called gift circles that I've been able to facilitate. We did random experiments where we went to a park where my partner was cleaning out her house because her parents had shifted. There were some old books, well in good condition, okay, the precious books, and clothes and winter wear which we did not need in the Andhra heat. So what we did at that time was we walked into a park, a public park, one of the evenings. We just put up a board and said, you know what, pick whatever you need. And then we started playing drums just to invite people. It was just a random experiment. And you won't believe, people came and hesitated to even pick up a book. They said, should I pay for this? Is this for free? I said, this is not for free. This comes with all my love. You should take it. But take it if you want, it's yours. And you don't have to pay anything or do anything back. They said, should I register somewhere? Should I write something down? Should I write a note of thank you? Should I pose for a photo? We said, no, you just take it if you want it. Because right now, I don't want it right now. And I'm trusting that you will pass it on to somebody else. And you won't believe this, that the kind of fulfillment that I personally had, in times like those. I think for me, I learned to tear up for the first time without feeling pain or anger or insult. All that I had known was pain or sorrow or something, so-called negative things is what will make me cry until that time. But for the first time, I was tearing up because of beauty, because of the joy, because of things that I couldn't explain put in words. And these were not even things that I had expected. And I never did this because I wanted to feel this way. So in experimenting like this, I found that there are many, many possibilities and endless creative ways to going about engaging with gift culture. And as I was traveling, I also had, come across many projects that are going on. There were cafes that people were really running successfully, where each person paid for the next person who's going to eat. So you don't know how much the bill is, but you're just paying from your heart. And I might have eaten for $50, but I might pay $150, or I might have eaten for $400 and then just pay $100. Whatever it is at that point that I can do, I do. And this model somehow worked. And there are people, and I think there's one in Gujarat. I don't know if there are people here from some of the projects who are familiar with such projects here in the group also. But these models, they have shown that it can work. Just trusting the goodness of people. I don't want to use the word goodness because this gets distorted in so many ways. But just trusting people, that if they come from the space of their heart, there's something really valuable and human about us that we can get in touch with and create together. And that's another wonderful thing that we have to create. This can only happen if we get together. One person, one group cannot sit together and create anything, but they can make the first step of change. Right. But there are some amazing groups. There have been thrift stores there is one thrift store in Delhi that somebody is running where, you go and pass on something that you've read and somebody else picks it up and they bring it back like a pay, like lend it forward library, rotational library sort of thing. But they do it with more than just books. They move things forward. They rotate a lot of things other than these things. There have been also stores that are running. There have been many such examples. People have been having walls in their cafe where people can come and leave a gift that they have. And what's important that I've recognized is that these exchanges need not be just material. They need not be about something or object that I'm giving. One thing I've enjoyed experimenting with is looking at what gift do I have. You know, to even ask myself that question has been very valuable. What can I offer? Okay, I don't have money. There have been days that I've actually gone to bed with just some chai and biscuits because I don't have money for dinner that day, right? And these have been part of my experiences as much as maybe today when I'm doing much better. But in the process of all of that, when I ask myself, what is it that I can, I want to participate in this economy and or in this culture, and how do I build this? And that eventually made me ask this question: what do I have with me? And you won't believe me, I realized that I can do a lot of things. I can write some few lines of poetry. And not that I'm saying that I'm a great poet and I'm so amazing, I'm this, I'm that. But just to say that I can do this from my heart, I can do this, lovingly, I can do this with a lot of joy in my heart and offer it to somebody. When I realized that I could do this, one, I recognized that I can do a lot of things that I had never acknowledged before. Two, the way I could do this, the experience of writing a poem for myself, or so that I can get likes on Facebook, and just writing a poem so I can gift it to somebody as a gift unexpectedly for their birthday or whatever it is. The experience of it was a world apart. And the fulfillment that it gave me was way different from what I had ever known. And in many ways, I've also been experimenting with seeing how we can do these skill exchanges. And this can also be a service. Somebody is going to office and they're saying, hey, I have 3 seats in my car. Can, anybody else wants to join me and I can just drop you guys, right? Now, so don't do it in COVID situation. But I'm just saying, there are other things like somebody is clearing their house and moving out. Then I can take some time off and say, hey, I'm happy to donate my time or like offer my time. Sorry about this. I know the donate word came from another context. I am happy to offer the time and I can help you move out. And I know it will be extremely valuable for me because I hate moving out from home and setting things up. It's a lot of work and management for me. And there has also been one experiment that I remember called the time bank, where people are, using time as a currency of exchange. But again, given from the heart, it's not exactly 5 minutes for 5 minutes, but it's just how much I want to give. And in that context, the word donation came up, but it also reminded me of the time bank. I think Kochi has a time bank, and there is also other time bank experiments that are happening across the world. Whenever it is about even, trying out gift economy or gift culture for that matter, I don't want to do it because I want this outcome. Because something that I cannot imagine possible might be waiting there for me. And I hope if you're trying to, explore gift culture in your own way, that you will also try and approach this way, that you don't think about the outcome, but just go with it with an open mind and see what is out there. There will be challenges. Like my friends told me, oh, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? You can't do, I can't go to a star hotel. I can't, drive a Mercedes or a BMW and all that stuff that some of my friends seem to be doing. But I know that if I list down all the things that are, I'm struggling with, and the sorrows and joys of life, they have their own bunch of sorrows. They might be driving a BMW car, but they have 6 meetings where they don't even have time for eating food or spending time with a loved one. And I know some friends of mine have come to this unfortunate circumstance where they are having to allocate 1 hour a day where they will not touch gadgets. They will allocate another hour a day where they have to spend time with their parents, because quality time needs to be spent with that 1 hour only. That means what? They've made a contract. Okay, from 9 to 10 is your time. 8 to 9 is not your time. This becomes a very painful way of living. And I'm not judging it. I'm saying it's a very painful way of living. Because if that 1 hour goes amiss for a few days, then the relationship slowly withers away. And for me, what enriches me in my life has been the quality of life and not the kind of things that I've amassed. I just want to take 10 seconds and take a pause to acknowledge that in whatever format gift culture has happened through generations or is happening or can happen for all of us, it can only happen because people are willing to put their hearts into it. Yes. So because there have been people who have taken the risk, they have tried things, they have created things, they have been willing to experiment with the unknown. Only because of that, I got to know that this is even a possibility. And I just want to take a moment and just bow down to all these people and sincerely be great. I mean, I wanted to share my gratitude for each and every person who is in their own way, knowingly, unknowingly, consciously, unconsciously, created this possibility and has kept this alive through the generations.